everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with the Audrey Helps Actors podcast, and this is episode 125. Feeling alive as you're possibly on your drive while you strive to arrive at the best part of your career. One of the best, I'm not going to overshoot it. The career could have many peaks and a few valleys. So I hope you are arriving at a fabulous peak in your career. This episode is Leveling Up with Melanie McNulty. Melanie is an actor / filmmaker who has made the move from Chicago to Los Angeles. We discuss how to find your casting on different shows with different tones. You know how I feel about the word casting. I don't love the term finding your casting, but we discuss it anyway. How to move to a new market, the importance of market research, what they film in Chicago and what they film here in Los Angeles. They are different. If you don't think they are, you should do some market research. The review baby only had one review this week. No. But I want to thank Kaylin Hartman. Kaylin, thank you so much. Thank you. But the review baby is about to hibernate along with us. If you want us to return, we're going to need some reviews because your reviews make me feel like I just got a call from my manager and she said, please hold, which is always a good sign. I have to add your agent to the call, which is a great sign. And they're like, hello. And I'm like, hi. And they're like, well, good news. And I'm like, yes. And they're like, you booked it. And I'm like, oh my God. And then they're like, I know you thought it was going to be a really low pay, but they're actually going to throw a ton of money at you. And I'm like, oh my God, not only did I book it, but they're going to give me way more money than I thought was going to happen for this job. And they were like, also, they're writing more material for your role because they just are so inspired by you. And I think, oh my God, that's amazing. That's how your reviews make me feel. So please take 20 seconds to just make me feel like I got a great role of a lifetime and tons of cash money and also an expanded opportunity of creativity to just burst my heart open. That would be wonderful of you. RateThisPodcast.com/Audrey. This little review baby wants some num-nums. RateThisPodcast.com/Audrey. It's super easy. Whatever you're doing right now, unless you're driving. If you're driving, ignore this. If you're not driving, just hit a little pause. Just a little pause on your earbuds. Just a little pause. And then just go to RateThisPodcast.com/Audrey. If you're doing the dishes, dry your hands. If you're folding the laundry, just put the towels down and go to RateThisPodcast.com/Audrey and leave a little review or a big review. I also like your gossip. If you got a little hot dish you want to leave me a review for, love it. If you want to leave some spicy info, I'm here for it. All right. This week's podcast is brought to you by Casting Networks. Go to castingnetworks.com/Audrey and use the promo code AudreyCN for $65 off an annual premium membership. That's AudreyCN for Casting Networks, not Audrey CN for Cozy Nightcap. I'm a fan of a cozy nightcap. So go on to castingnetworks.com/Audrey, promo code AudreyCN for $65 off. Also, surprise, it's the season finale. I have so many people I want to thank, but we're going to do that at the end. But I love all of you. This has been an outstanding season. I don't know if you think so, but I feel so. And part of the artistic experience is I can't take responsibility for how it is received. I can only take responsibility for what I create. So, huzzah! Jesse and I feel pretty solid about this season. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. All right. I hope you're on your way to set because I hope you booked it. Book it!
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with the Audrey Helps Actors podcast. And today we have
Melanie McNulty.
Hi, Melanie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Audrey?
Yay, I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so excited to be here.
I had reached out to a dear friend of ours, Alexandra Wright.
Yes.
And, I was like, who do you know? What do you got? And she gave me your info because I definitely wanted to do a finale episode. Welcome to the finale.
Thank
16
you.
of 16.
This is crazy.
And I wanted to do it with somebody that I hadn't met before. And she said you had just moved from Chicago. And I was like, well, great. Like, let's get it going. So you sent me all of your things.
Yes.
You had an audition log, but I made you get a little bit more in depth than you've perhaps gone, which is great. And hopefully we'll find out. And then I had you write down all of your intentions for today. So I always like to start by asking your landscape. How long have you been in LA?
I've been in LA for 5 weeks.
Yay! Welcome.
So new.
So new. And tell me a little bit about, are you represented? Do you audition? Do you audition for what kinds of things? How often do you audition? Are you union? What unions are you a part of? All of the things.
Yeah. So I'm represented back in Chicago, although they have an LA division because some of their talent who's moved to LA, they still represent.
Are they repping you additionally on both, or have you not asked, or have you asked and been denied?
I have been asked, and they're repping me both commercially and theatrically here. And they also did communicate with me, like, if you decide that at some point you want to stay with us commercially and then be with somebody else local, theatrically, we can, or vice versa, like we can talk about that, but very open communication and cool about it. I'm SAG-AFTRA eligible. I have my Taft-Hartley, but I have not yet joined. And I have my equity membership. Like, I'm EMC, not in equity.
Okay.
I'm in the in-between land for both unions. And then in terms of auditioning, I don't know if I have like a specific number off the top of my head, but I've auditioned for voiceover a lot, like at least 2 a week. TV has been a little slower, but every couple months, I usually get a TV audition. I have not really gotten very many commercial auditions. And then I do theater here and there.
Great.
So,
and by here and there, you mean there is in Chicago. Not here, but sometimes on occasion you do theater.
Yes.
And in terms of television, have you had any Los Angeles-based auditions for Los Angeles-based shows since arriving here?
No.
Great. But you have had more auditions for things in Chicago since arriving here?
I haven't really had auditions for anything since arriving here, other than voiceover.
Great.
It's been pretty slow this year in general, I feel like.
That's right.
But that's kind of where I'm at.
Great. So tell me why you moved to LA.
I've been wanting to move to LA since I was like 15.
Did you go through a breakup?
I did not. I actually just got married.
You're like, congrats!
Thank you. Marriage. Yeah, no, I got married last year, but I've been with my partner for 8 years. My husband, Evan. Shout out, Evan.
What's up, Evan?
He's the best. So handsome.
So handsome. Love it.
But yeah, so we like, it's something I've known I've wanted to do forever.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of one of those people who like always knew they wanted to be an actor. And so I had my sights on it for a while, and we talked about it before we got engaged. Like, are we going to do this? Because I'm doing it, whether you come with me or not, kind of. So it's something I feel like I need to do in a chapter of my life. So once we decided to get married, we're like, that's like the right time. We're not ready to start a family yet, / we're not sure if we want to do that. So now it kind of feels like the right time when we're in a little bit of a transitional phase of life.
Okay, so you are here.
I'm here.
And you haven't auditioned here for things for here yet. And have you done any like agent searching? Have you done any like headshot getting? Have you done any market researching? How's it going?
Yeah, well, I really have honestly been trying to just set up my life. Like, I haven't been doing a ton of acting stuff until like literally the last 2 weeks that I was like, all right, I'm getting the ball rolling again. I got new headshots before I left Chicago, and I got new demo reel footage back in Chicago.
Right.
Because I wanted to be more specific with my branding before I left, just so that I had something to come here with, that I had this package that looked a little bit more complete, so that I felt like I was being organized when I got here. I had something to show for myself. I've been just kind of updating that the past few weeks, just trying to get
like your materials together.
Yeah, just get my materials together after getting my apartment together, because we moved here with almost no furniture. So
that's what, I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, you either bring the furniture or you get the furniture, and both suck. So Might as well get some new shit.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want any of this stuff. It's like a yours, mine, and ours hand-me-down situation. So I was I'm ready to have all new stuff.
Oh my God, we have so much crap. I wish for you that this happens much later in life for you, but we are in the like everyone dies phase.
Oh God.
Well, we've been in that phase since we were like in our mid-20s. So it's just particular to like our family lineage, which is just like great. And so we just have so much shit.
And you keep getting stuff.
You're supposed to not get to that phase, I think, until like your 60s. But here we are. And just so much China. Like,
and you're like,
when
why does everyone have China?
I had no plates and we had no silverware. And now we have so much silver.
It's so bizarre.
We have silverware.
That's pretty
Generations of silverware. Is it? And we also have so much China.
Well, maybe you can throw a really fancy dinner party.
I do throw fancy. So here we are. Okay, great. So I wanted to have you on and just sort of see what you needed help with as somebody who's like coming to this market and helping you get started in Los Angeles. I'm sure you have tons of questions. You obviously sent me all of your materials, but some things I'd like to start with is just everyone's always like casting. What's my casting? Audrey, what has my casting? And I don't really love that word because, you know, you could be a nurse and I could be a nurse.
Right.
So we could both be fucking nurses. Great.
Yeah.
That's not helpful.
Sure.
So I'd like to just start with a little casting game.
Okay. I love a casting.
Oh my God, I love a casting game.
And I love a casting game.
It's like most fun. Let's talk about being a nurse. Okay.
Okay. Great.
So you're a nurse on a TV show and I'm a nurse on a TV show. Based off of your resume and your relationships in Los Angeles, what size role of a nurse are you likely going out for?
Probably a co-star.
Right. Probably
I don't
like
have any TV
in.
credits yet.
Right.
So
you would come in, you'd say something, and then you'd like leave, right? Yep. And if I were to audition for a nurse because of my resume and my credits, what size role would I be auditioning for?
You would probably be auditioning for like recurring guest star or maybe even a series regular at this point.
I would say either or both, right? Recurring guest, potential for series regular. That's how they usually start it because they don't like actually want to pay for you in the beginning. They want to like see how long you'll take no money until then you force them to have money. So I would probably have a slightly different role just based off of resume alone. Now, let's say your nurse is in a show and my nurse is in the same kind of show. What kind of nurse are you? How many years have you been in this institution? Have you just started? Have you been there for a long time? Are you there forever? Like, what's the story?
I feel like I probably would more likely be like the newer nurse. Nurse. Maybe the one who's like trying something different that isn't allowed. And you're like, that's not how we do it here.
So here's what's great is that you're going to be a co-star. So does that sound like a really interesting role to you? The one who's like, yeah, I'm doing something different. And then I'm going to be like, that's not how I do things here. Do you feel like that role that you describe for yourself is like a role with dimension?
That's a good question. I want to say no, but I don't know if that's true.
I think it is. Like, I think that would mean that we would have to see you have an idea of how things should go and then believe that you know better and then do something other than what should happen because you know better, which to me is a little bit of an arc.
That's more than a co-star.
I would say so. You're a writer, you're a director. Does that sound like a 1 scene, 3 line moment?
No.
Probably
it
not.
Definitely has more backstory.
It's got a little more. It's got a little more of a moment, right?
Yeah.
So, what kind of role would you have where you would be a co-star that would come in to the same show that I would be on as a nurse?
She's probably going to come in and try to tell you what somebody needs, or like, fulfill a job.
Right. I mean, she's going to come in and be like, Carol, somebody's coding in room 4. And then, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
She's coding in room 4 and that's it.
Yeah.
So if you were going to be a nurse in a hospital, what kind of hospital is it? Are you a nurse in like a high-end hospital? Are you a nurse in a really broken hospital? Like what are we talking here?
I feel like it could be any. I don't know how to answer that question necessarily.
Oh my God, so much clarity on your casting. So great.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I feel like when you say it out loud, my instincts were drawn more towards this like schlubby hospital, like a rougher around the edges. Like she's kind of worn out. She's probably been working for like 12 hours. That's kind of where like my head immediately goes to.
But
I
nurses
don't know.
work 12-hour shifts.
I guess they work 12 hours no matter what.
Hospital they're at.
Yeah.
That's just nursing.
I see her as exhausted for some reason in my head.
Great. So she's exhausted whether she's in a bougie hospital or in a new hospital or a broken hospital. But either way, so do you feel like you have what I would call like economic range as a nurse? Like, are you working in a plastic surgery office possibly? Are you working for somebody like a doctor in Beverly Hills who does the most elite surgeons on like the czar of God knows what, right? Or so maybe a more middle class hospital. This is like where most people are coming and having their babies and you know, whatever. Or a county hospital where there is no money, there never was money. Everyone coming in is so broke and waiting 15 hours to get seen. Or all of it?
That's a great question. I feel like in somewhere in the middle, like the second option that you gave me. I think I don't see myself as like being pretty enough or girly enough for the first one. Like being that prim and proper girl in there. And that seems like a weird way to say prim and proper, but like, you know, just
We're
like
back to
super glam,
1950.
super glam. Like I'm not a super glam girl really. That's not like my vibe totally. And then I feel like I don't see myself being like, we're in the most poorest county and it's rough out here. I feel like I see myself somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Okay. So just like a middle class, normal hospital. It sounds to me like you have a little bit of a lack of clarity, perhaps, in terms of what that means. And partly you're sort of like imagining. Have you watched any of the hospital shows shooting in Los Angeles and particularly looked at the nurses here?
Not in LA. No, I mean, I've definitely done all the market research for Chicago because I've been doing all of the procedural auditions for the past few years there. So I'm very familiar with those, but not as much with what's going on here. Yet.
Right. So you're in LA now.
I'm in LA.
And so it probably would be good to start looking at the shows that are shooting here.
For sure.
Because you have the most likelihood to book locally your local shows, whatever's here. Right.
Yeah.
So though you think that you would be great for this kind of hospital show or that kind of hospital show, I would say before you run out and are like, I need a nurse headshot, and then like take an actor nursing class where you like learn all the tech gargle and then, you know, get your EMT certification so that you have like a special skill, all things people do, special skill on your resume. Maybe we should just first see if they're casting nurses and if those nurses look anything like you.
Totally.
And if not, maybe we don't worry about nurse.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely.
So do you see how you have like the idea of where you fit in a profession, which I think is what people, when they say casting, they think like a profession. But then you also have like what the market actually is doing. Because a lot of nurse roles, especially for hospital shows, are recurring roles.
Yeah.
They might stay recurring co-star, but they're in every episode.
Yeah.
Because they're part of the world of the show. So that's where like market research really comes into play. Have you done any Los Angeles market research?
Not recently. I was definitely doing more when I was having for Self-Tape May, did my market research for certain shows. But I think one of the things that I notice that is a roadblock for me or that I always feel like I get stumped by is like, there's so much that I'm like, I don't know where to start. You know, I'm like, I could potentially be good for this thing. I could potentially be good for this thing, but it just feels so vast. And sometimes feels like, how do I funnel this into being specific? And also like, I still have to learn all the casting directors here. Like that's, some of that is still new to me too.
But also like, let's, you know, she's working on patience, you guys. She's working on patience. Because, you know, you're not going to learn the casting directors in 5 weeks.
Right.
It might take you 5 years.
Totally.
Because in Los Angeles and like Chicago, we have more than 5 casting directors.
Yeah.
We have like 500. So it's going to take you a beat.
Yeah.
Right. And do you have a particular kind of material that you're more interested in doing? Like, do you have shows and things like that that are exciting to you, that passion-wise, you're like, I love that. I want to do some of that.
Yeah, I really like some of my dream shows. Glow is no longer on the air.
No.
But that was, I think that's my favorite show of all time.
And which role are you like, oh, I would love that girl?
That's such a good question.
Oh my God.
I think I see myself as more of a Betty Gilpin, but I think I'm realistically a little bit more of the Ruth character, a little bit more, embarrassing myself more.
I see. Now those are leads.
Right.
So not a lead.
Not that I would be a lead at this point in my career, but
so let's talk about, because it was an ensemble cast, obviously, and they did have the two leads. So we have Betty Gilpin, praise be to Betty,
truly,
and then we have Bree, and the two of them are, 1 and 2 on the call sheet with Marianne as number 3. But then we have like 12 other girls, and I'm friends with many of them, and they didn't have a ton of resume, many of them, when they auditioned, because the show's on Netflix, and the point was to sort of create an ensemble.
Yeah.
And Genji Cohen, who's wonderful, was really looking for an ensemble that could handle the demands of the show, not just like famous person.
Totally.
I'm sure also Netflix wasn't throwing out like famous person budget. So any of the smaller roles as part of the Glow ensemble, do any of those girls like strike you as?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like
Melrose.
Melrose. She's a singer.
Kate Nash's character I loved. She's a singer.
That's the singer.
She's awesome.
Okay, so Melrose is the other curly brown
yes,
hair.
Like total like the epitome of the 80s. Like just super edgy, always kind of like super sassy and like tells it like it is, very honest. I definitely am like one of those people that like speaks my mind very bluntly, sometimes to a fault. So I think that's why I am drawn to that character.
Love it. Now, one of the roles I think would be really great for you, but you're not mentioning, is the super weird wolf girl. And here's why. I think you're really fucking weird.
That's so funny. I definitely am weird.
You're super weird.
I love that you're picking that up.
Of course, you're like so weird. You're so weird. And it's really funny. And the girl that played that role had a fucking blast.
She did.
Right?
She was awesome.
And she's awesome. And they just wrote for her more and more and more. And her role got better and better and better and better. So let's talk about your path to being even a person who gets asked into the rooms to audition for Genji Cohen for a show like Glow. Like, how does that happen?
How does that happen? I mean, I would think that I would have to have something on my resume that reflects that, like some sort of credit that reflects that type of work. Probably having some sort of connection with the casting director and having them know my work to some degree and seeing me being fit for that type of role. So having those relationships, I would think.
Yeah. So we have like casting, and I'm like, you're super weird. And then we have relationships, right?
Yeah.
And then we have materials.
And probably special skills. I mean, I know they taught them how to wrestle and stuff, but
they did teach them how to wrestle. Yeah.
But having physicality, I'm sure, was helpful.
I don't know if they had physicality. I know those girls. Sorry, I love you girls, but no, I don't think that was part of the can you wrestle wasn't the thing that got you in the room. On the docket. No. Okay.
Not that I can wrestle, to be clear. I definitely cannot wrestle.
They couldn't either. They had like 2 professional wrestlers.
Yes,
that were like the wrestlers.
Yeah,
that were women.
Led the team. Yeah,
love it. Love Kia, but the rest were non-wrestlers. So great. Okay, good. So that to me is like a comedy, a dark comedy, a sarcastic, gritty. There's hope, and then there's a lot of bleak.
Yeah, that's my favorite kind of stuff.
That's your vibe.
I love gritty stuff. Yeah. And I love that, like, and The Bear now is like the most popular example, but like I love that kind of material where it's like everything really sucks, but we're still going to find a way that this is funny because life does suck a lot and you have to laugh at it, right? Like that's how I see the world. So that's the kind of stuff that I really love that has like dark sense of humor. It's really bleak, but like, you know?
Yeah. What I love about what you just said is it's the exact thing that I want to talk to you about in terms of your auditions.
Cool.
Okay. Because you have been auditioning for Chicago Med, Chicago PD, and Chicago Fire for like years now.
Yep.
Right? And how many episodes have you booked?
0.
Okay. So I would say
there
is a flag to look at. There's like, boom.
Yeah.
Now you are getting called in, which means they recognize that you're not like wasting their time.
Totally.
Your work is solid in that they're like, we would feel comfortable putting this actress with any of our famous people and she would get us done. She'd get us done on time. She's bringing an interesting option. But girl, those shows are not funny.
No.
And you are bringing your sarcastic, sardonic sense of self to these auditions in a way that I'm like, I don't know that you have seen Chicago Med, because they are not giving you barrelfuls of laughs. On the shows. So part of what happens is we have our own sensibility, right? And we read things with our own sensibility.
Sure.
And then there's like what the show actually asks of us.
Yeah.
Now, a good thing to do is to know what your own sensibility is and try to find the shows and casting directors of those shows and agents who have relationships with those casting directors and showrunners and creatives, right? Who are all sort of have that same tone.
Yeah.
I would say that you gravitate towards naturally. If you audition for something outside of that tone, you have to have self-control, which you're currently lacking when it comes to your auditioning, because you're excited about what's getting you excited, as opposed to delivering the tone of the show. When we think of Chicago Med, are we like, God, that sardonic dark comedy? No,
it is a very structured procedural.
Yeah, who's the showrunner?
It's Dick Wolf.
When you think of Dick Wolf, do you think our very sardonic, dark comedy?
No.
No, we don't.
No.
What do we think of?
Very serious.
Very bum bum.
Yeah.
We literally think of bum bum, right? Okay,
Absolutely.
great. So when you're auditioning for a role, which I just want you to know, like the work is good, but you sent a self-tape where you find out that you're, no, it's great. Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous because
what
you
did I
don't know what
do?
you don't know. It's fine.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Very few people are teaching tone and story. And the problem with that is then what you're hoping for is that like, people just like know you, get you, like you, and then you bring like what you know and get and like, and then they just sort of like magically one day sort of go like that, and then you book the job. And that is a totally fine way to go about it. There's a lot of legitimacy to that because what you're saying is this is my authentic self. I'm going to continue to bring my authentic self, and then you find a role for me, which is a totally legitimate way to do it. Unfortunately, it's not booking you any of the Chicago franchises.
Totally. Yeah.
So because you're so trained and I think so good, there's no reason, well, I would tell you if you weren't, but because you're so trained and so good, there's no reason why you can't move like a musician who's going to go from playing a Broadway tune on the piano to playing like the music that you would play. I don't know why I'm thinking this, like the music you would play before like a magic show in like 1886. Which I guess is kind of musically if I'm thinking about it, but you see what I'm saying?
Like Dracula kind of energy?
Great, love
okay,
it.
great.
Like we have Dracula on one side, and then the same piano you would play for Britney Spears it's the same instrument.
Right.
We're playing the piano.
Yeah.
But they're going to have a very different tone.
Totally.
Right? And part of being a person who's a great musician with their instrument is that you can do both, even though one might be more suited to you and come more easily and be more fun for you. So then the decision of whether or not you're going to show your own personality and your own turn on the work and do you and fuck it to what the show is or the tone is or the story is, or if you're going to say, you know, I could do that tone. And I can do that. I just need to ground it a little bit more. Let me see if I can get there so that you book. Both are legitimate. But if you want more bookings because you're impatient, you know, then I would say a good thing to do is to see if you can start to deliberately do the tone of the show.
Absolutely.
Not just your take. And I want you to know, like, we all do this.
No, I completely agree with you. I think some of the things that are going through my head when you're talking about this is I feel like, first of all, always feel like I need to explain myself. Not that I need to, but some of the like behind, let's talk about it.
Let's do it.
First of all, like TV auditions are so far and few between, especially in Chicago. That's what I want to book more than anything. That's the work I want to do is I want to be in TV. I want to work in TV really badly.
Okay.
And so part of it is like, oh my gosh, I want this so badly. And I've really tried to let go of that because I'm like, everyone's like, as soon as you let go, you'll book. And I'm like, I'm gripping and I'm like, I'm letting go. But it's like, are you letting go? Really? But I'm trying. I'm really trying to. But how can I force myself to not care when like I just care a lot? It's really hard. So then there's this other part of me that also kind of got to a point where everyone's like, you can't worry about what casting thinks. You can't try to get it right. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to be done trying to get it right. Like, because obviously trying to get it right for so long was not working for me. So then I kind of switched into this gear of like, okay, I'm not going to try to get it right anymore and like stick to this thing that does feel authentic and just like make my own choices and, you know, see how that goes. But I totally hear what you're saying about tone, and it completely makes sense to me. But I feel like it's worth bringing that up because these are the things that you get in your ear, you know, and that people say, and you're like, well, this isn't working, so I'm going to try to do something different.
Yeah, this is why actors go crazy.
Yes. It's so easy to be neurotic. Actor neuroses.
Because you're like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, so I love so much of what you just said is that the auditions are so few and far between for television. If only there was a recommended practice that you could implement in your life wherein you could do television auditions on the regular and then you could learn the tone of the show on a consistent basis. And then when the actual audition happens, you've already practiced it all day, every day, like all the time. What would that practice be?
Self-tape May.
Not just self-tape May. It's just a self-tape practice.
Self-taping. Self-tape all year.
Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
Did you ever do Alexander technique?
No, but I'm familiar.
Okay. So my Alexander teacher, shout out to Betsy Politan, Queen, she used to say, if you wait till you need it, you're fucked. Because nobody talks dirty like an Alexander technique teacher, apparently. And I just remember thinking like, God, that is so right. And she was obviously talking about the Alexander technique directions and all of those things, because if you're not practicing the Alexander technique and then you wait till you're going on stage and doing opening night to like get into your directions and be aligned, you're fucked. You're fucked.
Yeah.
And so training, you train actors, you train mostly, it seems like younger actors, right?
Yeah.
Which is super fun. But you know that the purpose of rehearsal is to train it so that way when the nerves kick in, you already have a solid foundation that's coming in and overriding the nerve process.
Yeah.
What does that sound like to you?
I think that all makes sense. And I feel like I have practiced that. But it's really hard for me.
When you say you've practiced that, outside of your actual Chicago franchise auditions, how many Chicago self-tape practices have you done in the years that you have been auditioning for the Chicago franchise?
I wish it was more, but probably like 20 or maybe. Yeah.
And so about 20. Does 20 to you sound sufficient over a 3-year period?
Probably should be more than that.
Probably should be more than that.
Yeah.
How many episodes of the Chicago franchise have you watched?
Start to finish? A few.
Full episodes.
A couple, probably a handful.
Does that sound like that's helpful to you?
I mean, watching it, yes, but I also feel like once you've seen a couple scenes, you've kind of like got it down.
But clearly not because you're not booking.
Fair enough. But I feel like I really do understand the structure of the show.
Well,
I feel like I understand the story.
structure of the show and understanding the tone of the show aren't necessarily the same thing.
That's true
that there's the structure of like, at page 1, we have this, and page 6, we have that. And before commercial break 4, we have this. And then we always end with that. That's structure.
Yeah.
Tone is, did you do neutral scenes in college?
I don't know.
Like
maybe
blank scenes?
Like open
scenes,
yes,
right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, the whole beauty of an open scene is that you can have the same scene as somebody else and give you a different tone and different circumstances, and it's a different fucking scene.
Totally.
So even though it's page 6 to 10 and structurally that's the same, the tone of the Chicago franchise of 6 to 10 versus Shonda Rhimes franchise 6 to 10, the tone's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Right? Of the two of those franchises, if we take Grey's Anatomy and Chicago Med, which one has more humor?
Probably Grey's Anatomy.
Definitely Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
Which one is a little bit wackier?
Grey's Anatomy.
For sure, Grey's Anatomy. Luckily, you're here now, so you're in the right place.
Yeah.
But wait, Melanie. Wait. You little newbie Angelino, you. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
All right, today we have A special shout out from Carrie, Kerryweider. It could be Carrie Weider, depending on country of origin, or Carrie Weeder or Wider. Carrie, I just wanted to say thanks for the message. She says, hi, Audrey. I used your discount code for Casting Networks today. Thank you. And I said, woo! This listener question is brought to you by Casting Networks. Casting Networks. Are you like, OMG, what happened to that role I auditioned for? You can track your submissions with Roll Tracker. God, I wish everything had Roll Tracker. I just wish it would just soothe the neuroses of our little actor hearts. You can also get access to Thrive. You know, I've been about that mental health life, which provides unlimited access to telemedicine and behavioral services. We are offering $65 off a premium annual membership. Use the code AudreyCN. Be like Carrie. AudreyCN for Casting Networks, not AudreyCN for Crumpet Num-Nums. Though I do like a crumpet num-num. But I'm talking about Audrey CN for Casting Networks. That's castingnetworks.com/Audrey. Promo code AudreyCN for $65 off.
Hey, my name is Jeff Lepensi, calling from Los Angeles, California. I have a real issue with choosing what takes to send to casting after doing a self-take. I'm super hypercritical of my takes. I'll see one thing that I really like and I'll want that, but then the rest of the take may not be good. And then I'll see a take that is all good and I'm like, yeah, great, I'll put that in. And then when it's time to put in another take, I can never find that second take. I just have a hard time really finding the takes to send to casting, and sometimes it takes me hours to submit. How can I get past this feeling and submit faster and get this over with so it doesn't take over my life? Thank you so much for answering, and I can't wait to hear it. Take care.
Well, hey there. I love this question. How do you decide on takes without it taking 5 billion years? The first thing I want to say is don't do that. Don't take too long. Just don't. So everybody, if you're doing that, don't do that. What I like to do is mark the takes that I think are in the zone. I sort of heart on my iPhone the ones I'm like, yes, I like those ones. And then I actually will wait a few hours and I will rewatch the takes that I hearted, and I don't heart more than 3. And then I will choose them. And here's the thing. If you're not doing a dramatically different take, I promise you they're not as different as you internally feel like they are. They're just not. So if you personally aren't doing a take that's like really, like really subtle, level 2, really small, and then you're going to do a separate take that is like very bold, wide shot, hips up, maybe a level 8 in terms of broadness or movementness. Listen, it's not. And don't just change the frame. That doesn't change it. Just know that if you can't clearly identify the difference between the 2 takes, then the answer is there isn't a clear difference between the 2 takes. So stop stressing. Also, something to know is that plenty of us, myself included, will split a take. A lot of people will take the opening from scene 1, take 1, and then the rest of scene 1, take 2, and they'll just slice it. They just slice. You're like, Audrey, I don't know what you mean. They just edit it. They slice it. And sometimes you can tell, often you can't. I've booked roles that way. I know plenty of people who booked roles that way. If it makes you feel better to do a little slizzity slice, go for it. Don't just slice everything up. Don't do 80 slices. Nobody needs your 80 slices unless it's pizza. But if there's a real strong point of view about a moment that you hit at the end or a moment that you hit in the middle, or you feel like you messed up a line and so you want to add the rest of this other take because it's cleaner, go for it. You go for it. They're going to cut it up when you go on set anyway. They're cutting the whole thing up. If it's a real problem, they'll call you and let you know. But I have never heard of it being a problem. Don't do it too much. Don't abuse the slice. Just tell yourself you get 3 slices a year. Also, have people that you respect that you can send it to. Don't send it to me. Don't do that unless your name is Dylan. Dylan sends them to me. Dylan, love it. If your name's not Dylan, then don't send them to me. But have a friend or two that is qualified, a coach or somebody that is qualified to send them to. Or worst case scenario, I love to send a take or two to my representation. And I'll say, I can't decide between these two takes. You choose. And then I take it out of my hands because sometimes you got to do that because you get obsessive. So don't be obsessive. Don't slice too often. Don't overthink it. Have a good time.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So the other question I have for you is when working on the Chicago franchise and doing self-tape practice, did you ever enlist the assistance of somebody who has a proven track record of getting actors to book the Chicago franchise on the Chicago material?
Yes, I have.
And how many times?
Many. I had a coach for a long time whose recurring role on the show. So.
Great. And does that person have a proven track record, not of themselves booking,
Sure,
but of getting others to book the show?
I honestly don't know off the top of my head.
That would be a great thing to know.
Yeah.
Right.
I haven't worked with that person in a little bit, but yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. So if you know that you have a propensity towards dark comedy, sardonic tone, and you're going to be auditioning for Bum Bum tone, then I would say it might be worth it to not just seek any coach,
Sure,
but a coach who has a proven track record of taking actors who like to make things lighter and helping them ground it tonally to make things more appropriate for the show that you are trying to book.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, like, I'm racking my brain of like all the ways in which, how have I made it lighter than I realized that I did, you know?
I'll give you a great example. So you did an episode where the girl finds out that she's not pregnant, bum bum. Instead, she has like this massive gastric problem and it gets bad and bad and bad, right? Okay, so this is what I just want everyone to know. So this is how you started the tape. You're like, but am I pregnant? And they're like, no. And you're like, oh, thank God I'm not pregnant. Like you gave me so much of your own personality, which is great. Like, I know who you are. I know what you do, but you are definitely giving me the role of the sister on The Bear who finds out that she's in the hospital and is worried that she's pregnant. And then they're like, you're not pregnant. And she's like, oh, thank God, I'm not pregnant. Thank God. And here's what's really funny about it was you are naturally funny. And so that's
Thank you. That's nice.
You're welcome.
It's funny that we're talking about this because for so long, I always said I wasn't funny.
Well, that's so common.
Which is so interesting because I'm like, I do drama. I'm not funny. And I'm like,
well, you know what you said to me, which is such a great flag, is that you said things are already dramatic. It's like, who wants to take things more seriously? Yeah. And I am the same way. I hate making things more serious because I also think like things are really fucking serious. And I'm definitely the person, like when my friend's dad, they had a massive heart attack, went without oxygen for like 20 minutes in their brain. And so I went to go visit them at the hospital where their dad was. And I was like, let me take you out to lunch. And then we went out to lunch and I was like, so guys, how's your dad doing? What's he been up to lately? And we just had like a laugh and a great time. And we like made up all the things that dad was up to because dad's actually like comatose in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
So that's not a normal thing. And a lot of people would never, ever do that. They would talk to people like this.
Yeah.
They say, do you want to go have some lunch?
Yeah.
And they'd say like, how are you doing? And they would talk in that like funeral home tone, which drives me fucking nuts, right? Funeral home tone kills me. Okay, so you're that way. That just means you just need somebody else who's looking at it when you're not actually doing that tone.
Sure.
To let you know like, hey, little clowny friend, maybe not.
Totally.
And so I think you always thought of yourself as a dramatic actor, but that also may be like you've done a lot of plays that have versatility in tone.
Sure.
Or you're doing larger roles.
Right.
You just like almost always can't sustain that for 2 hours on stage. So a great writer, which is probably who you're working on, is going to have like really heavy stuff and then a lot of levity in order to like sustain it.
Point. Yeah.
Right. And so you're like, well, I'm a dramatic actress because you might book dramas.
Yeah.
But it's because you're working on the greatest Pulitzer Prize winning plays and you're bringing light and dark to it.
I mean, that totally makes sense. I'm already like, ooh, how can I practice this at home? It's getting my wheels to turn a little bit and making me feel more excited about how can I take this information in.
Okay, so you did research. Let's tell them all about the research. You had an audition log and you went and you plugged in all of your actual self-tapes into the audition log. And then you went and found the person that booked the job and watched the person that booked the job. How was that exercise for you?
I started the audition log, honestly, probably because of this podcast.
Great.
Like, I've been listening for a while. So I started that a long time ago, and it's just been helpful to see, like, chart your wins. You're getting called into the same casting offices. And I, in the past, have like watched the scenes, but there was something really different about like going through and doing it all in a row.
once.
And then also seeing, I don't always watch my own tape back right away with it.
Well, why would
and
you?
That
It's
was
so devastating.
Right.
Yeah.
But now that, you know, it's removed time wise, that I'm like, I feel like it's easier to watch because I'm not hurt about that anymore. I'm over it. And what was interesting is that like sometimes I'm like, oh, I love the choice that she made. That was so interesting. That was such a different choice. And this person found a different angle to this character, this moment that like I didn't see. And then there was also times where it's like, I don't feel like I did it that different. And I'm just don't look like that person. Or they pick somebody who looked differently than me, which also can in some ways like drive you mad. Cause there was like one character who did have like the exact same hair color as me. And like she didn't look that different in terms of like literal type. Something I deal with and have been working on for a long time is like feeling like I got it wrong.
Yeah, right.
And never feeling like, you know, what I'm doing is the right choice and is good enough and is correct. And so sometimes I think it can be validating to do that practice because you're like, oh, I didn't quote unquote do anything wrong. But then also there are times where you're like, oh yeah, I like that, but that person did way better than what I did. And it's good to watch that. I think it's really educational.
Great. It's a hard thing to do. It's a lot of confront, but I think there's a lot of really great information to mine so that people can really dig in and find out, is there something consistently I'm doing? And then I would say, if you walk away just feeling like broken, frustrated, and confused, then that to me means you don't have the eye to notice a consistency of what's happening. So you are maybe not the best judge, but you can rely on the evidence of you are consistently getting called in for the whole franchise and you are consistently not booking.
Yeah.
How many times are you pinned or veil checked?
I've never gotten that.
I would say that's very important information.
Yeah.
Because you should at least be in the mix sometimes.
Yeah.
And so if you're consistently auditioning for something
Yeah.
and you're not even getting a veil checked or pinned, that's information to take seriously.
Yeah.
I would say. And instead of it going 3 years, I would say maybe after a year, really try to get to the bottom of it.
Sure.
But instead of getting to the bottom of it yourself, which you can always start with by doing the audition log, you might want to seek a qualified individual, whether that's your acting coach, call your agent. If it's a local casting office, you could even talk to the casting assistant, take them out to coffee, see what it is and be like, what is happening?
Right.
And they might say something to you as simple as like, we love your work. You're just always like a little bit on the funny side. And then you could be like, well, I'm just trying to bring myself. And they're like, and it's great. What we're noticing is we always like your performance, but the person they're always choosing is more dramatic. What casting always says to like be nice is they always say, what production is responding to, which I love. I love you guys. I love the responding to because they're right. You're right about this feeling that there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And everyone's telling you there's no right way to do it, but also you're not even getting a veil checked or pinned. So obviously there's a discrepancy happening here. So like, what the fuck is going on?
And that drives you so mad because I feel like I'm getting quote unquote closer just because I've auditioned for the same show 13 times. And it's like, that's a lot of times to audition for one show and like all these different roles. So I feel like I'm doing something quote unquote right. But it's hard to know what is the thing that's going quote unquote wrong.
That's right.
How do I fix that? How do I make those changes?
That's exactly right. And I would say that's called the creative process. And when you're in the middle of the creative process and you feel like you're working it out, you're doing some things correctly, or you're on the right track, like that is why we have directors. That's why we have people who are collaborating with you to shape and mold, because when you're in it, you can't see. So I recommend going back to all of the auditions that you've had over the last several years. Just like take the pressure off because you're like, the pressure. So take the pressure off. And work with somebody who has a proven track record of taking actors who have a little bit of a propensity towards comedy and telling them to take it down a notch and know that this story, if we're taking the girl who thought she was pregnant for a second, is actually not at all about her being pregnant. And you could tell because they rewrote it.
Yeah.
They rewrote it to where she's like, well, at first I thought I was pregnant, but then I went to all these other doctors and they just said it was the flu. And you made such a meal out of it being pregnant that if we don't have you accidentally having twins at the end, then we don't have an arc. Okay.
So true.
So you have to ask yourself, like, why is this scene in the show? And then what would be missing if this scene was missing from the show? And then, like, where does it end? And so with that character, where does it end?
She ends up having all these problems with her gut.
Yeah.
But
and
then she doesn't die at the end. But
she doesn't
makes it.
die, but she has...
Okay, she's got cancer. She got the big C.
She's got the
cancer.
big C.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you don't know the Chicago franchise and you get a line like, so I'm not pregnant? Oh, thank God. And you're yourself, of course you'd be like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
But if you know the Chicago franchise and you know the reality is that you got the big C and you have 3 scenes to get there, then this is not a comedy about how you're not pregnant. But oops, you've got cancer. This isn't 50-50. 50-50 is a dark, sardonic, it's a buddy comedy about cancer. That's real. That's what it is. Okay. This is not what the Sex of Chicago Med is.
Right.
Thoughts?
I think one of the things I'm thinking about is I feel like I know this, but I also, it's easy to know it logically. And then when you're the one in it, it's like, I got to get this audition. I got to do this thing and I got to make it my own. And I got to, it's
You
like
all these
that.
voices.
Yeah. It's like all these things of like, I'm trying to let go and I'm trying to be natural and I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that. And sometimes I'm like, girl, just chill. You can just do it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do all that.
I think acting is hard. First of all. And I would say, like, you have to be relaxed in order to perform optimally. You also have to be a master of the thing that you're trying to compete in. So it feels like to me, what you've been experiencing is like you're kind of flailing around because you don't feel like you're getting the feedback that it's a I'm not a good actor thing, but you're definitely not getting the feedback of I'm a booking actor.
Right. Which sometimes makes you think I'm not a good actor. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very frustrating.
Right.
And that to me is you must learn story. You must learn tone and you must learn story. And almost nobody's teaching it. It's really hard. Writers work forever to learn tone and story. Directors work forever to learn how a shot tells a story and a tone, right? So it's really tricky. I think it's a little like knowing the sport you're actually playing, you know? And so like if you know that the tone of this franchise sounds like this. I mean, you've done tons of musicals. You can ask yourself, does this scene sound like this tone? Because you know it needs to. Part of what I love about self-tapes also is that like you can fucking tape it and see. Yeah. And so you can tape it at your performance. Like, this is how I would do it. And then you can say, okay, I recognize that I like to make things funny and sardonic. Let's do it. Let's do that in half. And then let's do it in half again. And then wait 2 days and then watch them. And then see which one feels more like the tone of the show. But again, so that you're in charge of your craft. Right?
Absolutely.
Another hack that I love to do is I love to think about, like before the camera roll, or you can have the camera roll, but you just edit it, moments in life where things weren't fucking funny. And then you're going to just talk about that thing for 2 minutes. And you just tell the scene partner, like, I'm going to just like let it roll. And then if you have the first line, then just tell them to really listen for your first line. And if they have the first line, just tell them, I'm going to like touch my shoulder. When I do this, go ahead. And so they're going to have to really pay attention. Oftentimes that will start you in the more serious place than how you're interpreting it, which is like, let's not make this super heavy. If I was in a hospital, I'd be funny. Like, I get it. Me in a hospital, hot riot.
Right. Same.
All right. Now we're going to go to your questions.
Okay.
La, la, la. Okay, so you
questions.
wrote me a list of things that
My chicken
your
scratch handwriting.
intentions, love. Okay, I can read it. When to join the union. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why are
please.
you guys so scared to join the union? What is wrong with you? What's
So,
happening?
so this is what I keep hearing from people. And I don't know if it's other actors or who's saying, I don't know who's the one
let's
that's
really
saying.
identify it. Is it other actors?
I don't really know.
No, think about it. When you're hearing these voices, is it other actors? And are these actors in a place you want to be?
No.
Great. Is it agents?
I would not say that my reps are telling me not to join the union, but I think because of paying the upfront cost of joining the union, I feel like people assume that you want to do that once you've booked the job or like you've gotten your third or you've gotten to the point where you're a must join.
Do you think that that's what it is, though? Is that what it is? Is
mean-
anyone saying to you, hey, it's really expensive. Whatever you do, don't join the union until you have to because it's so expensive. Is that what they're saying?
I have heard that.
Okay.
People keep saying, you're in the sweet spot. You're in the sweet spot. I keep hearing that. And I'm like, am I though? Because I've been in this quote unquote sweet spot for
a long
over a
fucking
decade.
time.
And
Oh my
like,
God.
I don't know if I can keep living here and I don't really want to. I want to be in the union. I want to book work that's going to pay me money. You know what I mean? Like,
I want to have a conversation about this, like non-union cults that I've sort of identified, because it just literally doesn't make sense to me. There are people pushing to stay non-union. I think some of them are actors who are staying non-union, and some of them are reps who want you to do non-union because once you go union, you'll likely move on from them. And some of them are casting because they also like your incredible talent on their non-union stuff.
yeah.
And so what it starts to feel like to me is everyone is like really scared to leave. It's like Midsommar. It's like everyone's scared to leave because everyone's made you so scared of what's beyond the mountain.
Yeah. And I also think it's this fear of like, oh, well, once you're in the union, you're not going to book any work.
Right. But that's the cult thing. That's like, well, once you leave, you know, we can take care of you here. We can give you food. We can nurture you.
And I think it's also like, it is a unique, probably smaller market problem. Like, because there's
For
not as much work.
some markets.
I don't know
for
if
Chicago.
I don't know every market, but I feel like that's what I've heard from peers. Whether or not that's correct,
If
I don't
you were
buy
in
into
Cincinnati, I would be like, right, there's not a ton of union work happening in Cincinnati. But in Chicago, that's just really not true.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give you that for Chicago. So if they're telling you that in Chicago, it's again sounds to me like it just feels a little non-union culty to me of like, it's scary out there. There's nothing for you. Like that's the sense that I get in that it feels like there's all these scare tactics happening. Because doesn't it start feeling weird that everyone's being so weird about you joining?
Yes, absolutely. And I also think like I'm in this,
Right.
like I've
Like, what are we
made the
doing?
choice to be in this career. I'm not going to sit around and like not want benefits and not want to be protected and not get paid enough. Like I want all of those things. Why wouldn't I if this is what I'm dedicating my life to?
So when to join the union? What's your answer?
Now? Don't wait anymore. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Cool. You feel a lot of pressure by social media and reels that actors are making. Do I need to? I mean, the one you posted today was so funny. I literally saw it and I was like, that's hilarious. Social media is just a way to extrovert your voice. That's all we're doing here.
Right.
Now, many of the people that I follow and love do 1 a week, 1 or 2 a week. They're not doing a ton.
Yeah.
But if you are a writer, director, actor, and that's a passion that you have, and you do have a clear voice, which I believe that you have, the pressure is all yours. You're creating that pressure. Is that a viable option for you? I think that it is.
Yeah.
Do you have to do it? Like, no one's going to blow your fucking brains out if you don't.
Sure.
But it is a way for people to see that you are bringing value to the table.
Absolutely,
so they don't have to build value for you. And so if you are, say, an eligible actor who has no representation in the market in which you're living and also doesn't have television credits, then perhaps you might need to work on your own value. And one way, just one, is social media. Some people would rather die than do social media. It doesn't seem like you're in that position. It seems like you enjoy it. You acknowledge, which is true, that it's actually really fucking hard.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
It's a ton of work to be funny.
I like that framing of it because I think where I was feeling the pressure of it is like, this is a thing that people are doing and like reps are talking about it because you can make money doing this. And like, am I missing out on this whole thing of like this whole opportunity of making money because I'm not like going out there and like making all these funny reels and that's another thing I have to do. Like
there's
at one point,
ways to make money. I don't know. Go invest in high yield savings accounts, like it's a lot less drama.
Yeah.
But in terms of how or why you're getting pressure, first of all, it's just a thing people say, like, you need to get new headshots. It's just like a thing everyone says. It's like, you create social media content.
Yeah.
But you know that it's a lot of fucking work.
Right.
And so you feel both the desire to do it,
yeah,
but the understanding that it's a real commitment, just like joining SAG.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe instead of being less patient or working on more patience, you should just work on like actually leveling yourself up.
Lifting myself up?
Leveling yourself up.
Leveling myself up, yeah.
I say like you can't float to the top if you're clinging to the bottom.
Mm.
And part of what happens is we like look at the work ahead and we're like, I don't want to do all that fucking work. And then you're like, but I really have to do all that fucking work. And then we drag our heels for 3 years. And in those 3 years, you could have just been making
doing all the work.
Slow progress. Like it doesn't have to be out the gate win.
Yeah, totally.
Okay,
I think that I've gotten to a point where like, I'm really ready to believe in myself now. Like,
girl, I believe in you. I
thank
really
you.
do.
I appreciate that.
I think you don't need to like hedge your bets anymore.
Yeah.
You're ready to go. You're out here. You're ready to go. And I just need you to know, don't drag your heels.
Right.
But also don't be obnoxiously impatient.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you know that there's shit you got to do that shit. But when there's things out of your control, don't flail around and be mad at people or be neurotic to them.
Yeah.
Now we'll move on to questions. Social media.
Oh, my social media.
Yeah, sure. Let's hear it.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram.
Yes, you are.
At Melanie McNulty _. My name is pretty phonetic.
Tell everyone how to spell Melanie McNulty.
MELANIE MCNULTY.
_.
Yeah.
We'll have a link, but I always like people to spell it. Great. And any more questions that you have for me now that we have talked to you?
I kind of want to ask you the question that you always ask people.
Okay, great. I'm ready.
What is your mildly interesting right now?
Oh, love. Okay, it's not great. Okay, here's what it is. I want everyone to know it's really hard for me often to watch narrative scripted content because it is work.
Totally.
Like I watch it and I'm like, who's that bitch? And what's that thing? And I'm like, so I can watch like English things because I'm like, they're not calling me to go to England.
Sure.
I mean, I would love for them to, but they've got plenty of me. I don't have dual citizenship. So, I'm just really expensive for England. So I watch a lot of reality television show. I just do because I have to, because it mellows me out the way that other people use scripted narrative content. And so I have begun, by multiple recommendations, I have begun season 1 through 3 of England's Love Island. And I just want everyone to know it is as satisfying as all of my friends. And they specifically said England. And I'm here to say I accidentally started the US version first. And I was like, they don't have British accents. But I was like, I'll give it a second. And I was like, no, terrible. There's something about the disaster of... we just have production to a fine art here in Los Angeles. So our Love Island is going to be a little refined. And what I'm looking for from my reality television is fucking mess.
You want
I want
nasty.
to be a disaster.
Yeah.
I want the art department to not exist. I want to be like, where did you even get that table? What is that lamp? You
love
couldn't
that.
have lit it worse if you tried. Like my 6-year-old nephew would have done it better, right? So that's what I'm sort of like here for. Okay. Now, my other mildly interesting, which I think is much more fun, is political, which is I bought a Kamala Harris shirt for her campaign and it says, grab them by the ballot. And I'm just so excited. And here's the thing, it's actually like a pretty old saying. It was like already there for the last election, but I'm like, you guys, grab them by the ballot. I'm a feminist. I'm going to do it. I'm so excited.
Yay.
What is
I love
your
that.
mildly interesting?
Okay, this is, I guess, somewhat mildly interesting, or maybe what am I fascinated in right now?
Great.
Moving to LA is
Yeah.
like a culture shock in
It
some ways,
is.
especially coming from Chicago, which is like a very grounded Midwestern place. And I grew up there, so it's like the life I know. There are so many mustaches and cowboy boots and tattoos and mullets on the east side of LA. And it
true.
boggles my mind.
It boggles
because
my mind,
everyone
too.
thinks they're being so individual and they all look the same.
I want you to know that that's true of all of LA, that every section of LA has a uniform. So like when you go to Venice Beach, everyone looks like they just walked out of a yoga cult. Like they all do. Like they've never worn shoes with soles in their entire life. Okay. Lastly, you get the final plushie pick of the season.
Oh my gosh, so much
So
pressure.
here's the rules. I'm going to count to 20.
Okay.
You get to pick, and then you have to come back and sit down and tell me why you picked this plushie and if you have a name.
Here we go. Okay, honestly, I had one kind of
And-
jump out to me. I
Okay,
think I
great,
have
I'm
it.
ready.
I think I'm going to go with, should I point to it?
Go, no, just go get
Okay,
it.
I'm going to go.
Okay, I'm going to hold my eyes. I want to be like absolutely surprised. It's okay, they can all fall. It's fine. Let it go. Okay.
Are we
That's
ready?
10 seconds. Okay, ready? And I love it. This is great for
Okay.
your edition of your place.
I'm going to put it in my self-tape space. That's
Oh
what
my
I'm
gosh,
going to do
you
with it. Because as I said, I have no decor really.
God,
So
you need some.
I think I'm drawn to this because it's a plant that I can't kill.
Great. Love.
And I just it's like sleepy little cozy smile.
And
it looks so relaxed.
And he or she.
I think it's a she. I'm going
And
to
she
say
matches
she.
your nails.
Oh, she does match my nails. That's such a good point.
I want you to hold
love
her
her.
up to the camera and then tell her what her name is.
It just, Susie just popped in my head.
Oh my God, Susie.
Hey,
I
Suze.
love Suze. Oh
This is
my God.
Susie.
You know what? Let's call her Suze.
Suze.
Off of Susie Orman, my favorite financial hero, because
love that.
this is going to be like your money plant, keeping you booked
Ooh,
and blessed.
I love that for me.
Love it. Yay. Well, thank you so much for
Oh
coming
my gosh, thank you
on.
for having me. This is like kind of a dream come true.
Oh my God, love.
Wow. I've been listening to your podcast since like 2018. I have like a short
Amazing.
little story. I started listening to it because I was a wee babe actor and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was a barista and I had to get up at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I was walking to the bus and I just started Googling podcasts about acting because I was like, I need to learn things. And I've been listening to it ever since.
Amazing.
And I just like could never imagine when I was like brewing my little coffee back in 2018 at that shop that I would be here. This is really crazy. In my first month in LA. It's
I mean,
wild.
that's why when you were like, I'm like ready to get my shit together. And then I contacted you. I'm like, see, this is all of it going together as it's supposed
crazy.
to. Okay. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
I'm
Appreciate
so
it.
glad. Welcome to LA.
Thank you.
You're going to have the best time. This is the best.
I'm excited.
I love this town. Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, nothing. We're on hiatus. We're on hiatus. We're on hiatus. La 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 la. Unless you never leave us a review and then we're just gone. So I'm holding my podcast hostage. I want reviews. Thank you so much, Melanie, for coming on. Thank you, Alexandra Wright, for recommending Melanie. Melanie, you are just an absolute delight. But I have a long list of people that really need a lot of love. I want to thank everyone who listened this year, who shared the podcast, everyone who shared on social media, everyone who listened to the podcast for the first time because they found one of our videos on social, everyone who was gentle to their friends, who were like, I don't want to listen to that podcast, get off my back. And you did. You got off their back. And then whenever they were ready for it, they listened. And then they came to you and were like, oh my God, I finally listened to it. You were right. But you were gentle about it. And you didn't go, see, I told you. Instead, you were like, see? Yes, isn't it so helpful? I want to thank all of you. I also want to thank everyone who went to every single meetup, every single guest. Thank you so much for taking the drive out, for putting yourselves out there. I know it's very vulnerable, and coming on and doing the podcast. I want to thank SAG-AFTRA, our union. This is a SAG-AFTRA podcast. Whoop, whoop. I want to absolutely thank my husband, still so handsome. I think this is the least we wanted to murder each other at the end of the podcast. And that's all due to our incredible editing staff. Thank you so much, Matthew Patrick Davis, Austin Grant, Anisha Adusamili, Brooke Becker, filmmaker, Thomas Snodgrass, and of course, our social media editor this season, Murad B. Yunus. Murad, you were awesome. If you are looking for a social media editor, I cannot recommend him more highly. He was fantastic. This episode was edited by Matthew Patrick Davis, mixed and mastered by Thomas Snodgrass, produced by Jesse Lumen, show music by Ari De Niro, theme song by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill. All right, I will see you at the commercial Working and Wages as we discuss our contracts when we get that money. Have a beautiful fall and winter. I am ready for Christmas. Shout out to our sponsors this year, and shout out to Casting Networks for this episode and so many more. I so value our collaboration as it helps me help pay the staff that we have, because it takes a village for this heavily produced podcast. If you are looking to submit, if you are looking for an agent, if you're looking to be scouted by representation, enjoy Talent Scout. Talent Scout. Get your talent scouted at Talent Scout so you can get that included in your premium membership. Go to castingnetworks.com/Audrey. That's castingnetworks.com/Audrey. Use promo code AudreyCN. That's Audrey CN for Casting Networks, not Audrey CN for creamy nutter butter. I love a creamy nutter butter. That's right. That's what she said. Audrey CN for $65 off a premium annual membership. And if you do, send me a little message and say, Audrey, you saved me money. Thanks. Because it makes me happy.